This is the most important Jasmy update of the year. If you hold XRP, XLM, XDC, Quant, some of these other ISO assets, why aren't you holding Jasmy? Jasmy, I rank number 3 as far as the highest potential long term, right behind XLM. I have XRP and QNT tied for my number 1. Okay, Jasmy is consistently part of my number 3 because I feel as though it's going to have the highest potential long term. That's just my own opinion, but I will provide you some detailed research here that will pound that home. A lot of people click off these videos, they miss it. For you guys, listen to what I am presenting and consider sticking to the end, because I guarantee you will miss the key areas that are so crucial.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
I have many friends that are earning every single day trading futures on BTCC. It's a simple process, and even if you don't want to learn how to trade, you could follow a trader on the site and let him do the trading for you. And again, I'm not trying to have any of you guys use your hard-earned money to lose anything. You don't know what you're doing? Don't jump into this, but there is money to be made, and don't use your nest egg for leverage trading. Use a separate portfolio. But I suggest learn how to trade. Earn you some extra money on BTCC. It's easy. You don't have to KYC, and you don't have to use a virtual private network VPN. This is a wonderful site. They've been around since 2011. Give them a shot. Also, when you earn that extra money, you can store that on your Decent wallet. The Decent wallet was not affected by the XRPL debacle, where the backdoor of many wallets was open and there was a breach. So Decent wallet was not affected by that. Decent wallet is as safe as you keep your seed phrase. It's a wonderful product, and you can get the discount by using the link. It's the only way to get the affiliate discount, and that is to use an affiliate link. So that link is popping up on the upper right side of your screen, and it is the one that you will use. You will also get free shipping. Pick you up a Decent wallet today. Secure your assets. If you don't have them stored in a wallet and sitting on an exchange, then you're at risk. So pick you one up today. Thank you.
Number 1, look what's mentioned here from CSIS. It says, in nearly 4 years since DFFT was endorsed by the G20, Japan has advanced the concept in several ways. Like it mentions here, 4 key cross-cutting areas of cooperation in that roadmap: data localization, regulatory cooperation, government access to data, and data sharing for priority sectors. Also mentions that the G7 had an action plan for promoting data free flow with trust. It's been a while since I've given you guys a DFFT update. This might be the most important one you have ever heard from me on this platform. Look what it says here: digital regulatory interoperability, promoting DFFT in the context of digital trade, sharing knowledge, quote, international data spaces. In emerging interoperable data sharing architecture, Japan has also infused DFFT into new trade agreements, such as US-Japan Digital Trade Agreement, USJDTA, and the Japan-UK Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is called the Japan-UK EPA. Now watch this. Take it over to here. There's another citation here. And these citations, a big shout out to Daniel. He's the guy that I'm working with when it comes to research, right? And there'll be a call to action at the end. So shout out to Daniel with the key findings, Daniel, aka Jesus Oil. You see here as well, avenues for operating DFFT. Tokyo has identified 2 tracks for operationalizing DFFT: a trade track, regulatory cooperation, upholding common and good regulatory practices, cooperation on the development of regulatory technology, which is called RegTech. That in itself can facilitate the interoperability of different data governance approaches. For DFFT to advance on these 2 tracks, international policymakers should consider the following points. And for one, like it says, digital trade is a fractured space, but the United States, the European Union, China, etc., have developed constructing data governance regimes that meet the compliance of it all, especially with cross-border. All right, where are we really going with this? All right, so I mentioned RegTech. For one, RegTech is closely working together with who? Well, boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. ISO 27001. Working together by using technology to automate compliance tasks, while the ISO 27001 standard provides a framework for managing information security. RegTech solutions can integrate with a automated process or processes with an ISO 27001 information security management system, ISMS, helping organizations manage risks, collect evidence, and align security practices with both the standard and other regulatory requirements. This synergy is especially important in regulated industries like fintech, where it can reduce audit fatigue and build trust. So I want you guys to understand why I point this out, especially if you're new. It's because Jasmy is ISO 27001 certified, ISMS certified. And I pointed that out a while back in some deep dives, probably a couple years ago or more. But what do we have that's recent? Great question. We're going to get into that here in a bit. Here's why. For one, it's this update. Yes, a brand new update. Came out literally today. This is from openpr.com. companies are turning into outsourced ISO 27001 internal audits. Edge Consulting Group specializes in this service. And as you see here, it mentions specifically all this about what? Well, security, compliance, professionals, and the whole thing of Edge Consulting. And last I saw, Jasmy has a real tie to what? Things like Edge Computing, Edge AI. So there's this person, his name is Kirk Elmore. He's part of CISA. He announced the expansion of Edge Consulting Group into its security and compliance advisory services, helping organizations strengthen their governance, risk, and compliance, which is called the GRC programs. But the firm, think about this, specializes in ISO 27001 and SOC2 readiness, vendor risk, management, internal audit support, and fractional GRC services available on either project or retained basis. They point out ISO 27001. And it's the clause, it's 9.2b, that requires organizations, please listen to this part, even if you're new, try to soak this in. It requires, all right, not like, oh, it might be optional. No, it requires organizations to conduct internal audits at planned intervals to evaluate the effectiveness of information security management system. Many organizations struggle to meet this obligation due to limited internal audit expertise, lack of qualified resources, or conflicts of interest. Edge Consulting Group provides outsourced ISO 27001 internal audit engagements to address this requirement while preserving audit independence and reducing staffing costs. This Edge Consulting Group has led ISO 27001 SOC2 compliance efforts, including acting as a liaison with external audits and supporting full preparation through successful certification with more than 2 decades of experience, etc., etc. So there's a wanton need for this particular standard. All right, that's interesting. Absolutely is interesting. Okay, now look what it also goes on to mention here. It goes on to mention that when we get more into it, what about Jasmy and Edge AI? Great question. Jasmy is a Japanese blockchain project focused with integrating Internet of Things with a decentralized network to give users ownership control of their personal data. The quote Edge AI aspect refers to Jasmy's use of edge computing to process data directly on devices such as smartphones, IoT sensors, combined with artificial intelligence. So as Jasmy and Junction, they blanket this entire industry. That is absolutely huge, okay? Speaking of Jasmy and speaking of the whole thing of Junction, just in case you're new, Jasmy's system is built on decentralized infrastructure, including layer 2 Junction, because you need the scalability. You're not going to just do it with regular Ethereum. Blockchain interplanetary file system. People wonder why I'm so bullish on Filecoin. To ensure secure, transparent exchange of data. For example, the partnership with Kazoo, which I covered in the past, so on and so forth. There's this area here about Panasonic. We're going to get into that in a bit. Let's fast track through this as much as we can, but not missing the key areas. Another great finding from Daniel. In his highlight, he gets into the whole thing of how you have no single international organization that is responsible for overseeing digital trade. Rather, a number of different organizations and groupings, such as the World Trade Organization, which is WTO, and OECD, which I'll get more further into here in a bit. G20 and G7, all engage in this digital trade discussions. But whatever the case be, you see Japan, you see Australia, you see Singapore, nearly 70 other WTO members, but in a joint effort, ladies and gentlemen, for a joint statement initiative, the JSI is an e-commerce negotiation that aimed at developing global rules for e-commerce. The OECD has been engaged in digital trade conversations as well as with recent work focused on global data governance as phase 3 of the organization's Going Digital project. This is so major. I want to point out another thing, that even when we get further into it, what do we have here? Straight from IISS.org. Max, you're just pulling up old data. No, I'm not. I'm connecting it all for you. On the 13th of October, they had this online analysis that points out specifically Japan's data flow framework and the contest for governance. Mentions that data has become essential currency of the digital age, but the frameworks that regulate its movement are fractured and unsettled. Japan's Data Free Flow with Trust initiative aims to enhance the free flow of data across borders and faces challenges in achieving widespread acceptance. It basically faces these challenges because it needs the right technologies to achieve its goal. And when we get further into it, this is so important to highlight. By 2030, global data volumes are forecasted to reach about 500 zettabytes. Now that's a lot, all right? That is a lot of data. Like for one, I believe 1 zettabyte, I'll have to double check on that. I think something like 1 trillion gigabytes. As we know, 1 terabyte's 1,000 gigabytes. So, I mean, do the math on it. This is crazy amounts of data. So I want you guys to have an idea of why I'm pointing this out. When we say that data is the new oil, It's like, who will harness this specific data that is to be protected? Think about what I'm talking about. Jasmy, we should look at it in the light of they are going to protect oil reserves, digital oil reserves, if you will, right? That has tremendous value because this is disruptor of things like Google, centralized data oil, because data is the new oil. So this is roughly 5 times the flow in 2022. Really big estimates, right? This market, for example, has stated that they estimate an indicated cost of restrictive policies about $2 trillion, and there should be, for example, Japan with the whole thing of data-free flow with trust to wager cross-border data flows that can remain open without sacrificing sovereignty. And of course, the whole thing of conceptual and institutional foundations remain fragile. Now, when I point out some of this stuff, I realize for, again, a lot of new people, it's just like, it may go over your head. But I want to point out, when I talk about mandates, there's also requirements, which is another word for mandate. You have to keep in mind, it literally shares the key insights with you of what matters. DFFT seeks managed openness of data with safeguards. India's data for development prioritizes sovereign value creation and public interest use at home, open cross-border flows only once those aims are credibly secured. Right. Thus, effectiveness of Japan's vision depends on demonstrating DFFT can address the need of broad range of states. There's a requirement. It's going to offer sustained technical assistance, regulatory capacity, building the protection for small and medium-sized enterprises so that cross-border flows are perceived as opportunities for development rather than a threat. Okay. The second barrier is the difficult transition from coordination to enforcement. That requires binding international or interoperability standards, shared certification schemes, so on and so forth. The mechanisms, think about how Jasmy play a role in that can ensure national security exemptions that won't erode the regime's integrity. The main challenge here remains the United States, indispensable but deeply complicated actor to engage with DFFT. All right, now watch this. When we get further into this, I want to point out some of the other key things. And that is, remember how I talked about OECD? You may think that that's not a big deal. Shout out to Tokenizer with the findings. Remember I talked about Quant and Jasmy a while back? And we understand that Jasmy obviously went with Chainlink, and that's fine. No problem. But it's inevitable that the two will work together because Quant is a global standard. Through what? The standard ISO TC 307. There's accolades for QNT over the past few years. And more importantly, it's this thing that mentions ITU, ICC, the UN, and OECD. This isn't a crypto project like it says. Is there other examples? Well, there's even Casper. I haven't talked about Casper in a while. I still hold Casper. Some of you guys got flooded out of Casper. I'm talking about Casper with the hard R, not the clam chowder version of Casper. I hold that too. But it seems like Casper, at least back in 2024, is referencing OECD for AI frameworks. See how this aligns? See where Jasmy aligns with a bigger, broader perspective of things? These frameworks. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, is a leading international government global standard body. And even here, you see, for example, the organization, like it says, has developed and highlighted a role for AI in transforming governance and public sector efficiency. At that time, they had a report that underscored the importance of AI in policy making. So even things like Casper, Labs with Prove AI, they recognize it as well. Okay? You see on the right side, I know a lot of you guys hate the World Economic Forum. I'm not a big fan of them either, but I'm going to reference this. World Economic Forum academic partner. You have the networks of AI experts with OECD. These things are so important to cite. Another thing I want to jump into is pound it home a little bit more when it comes to the whole thing of specifically what? Well, the whole thing of this OECD. And as we jump into it, standards bodies around the world are behind ISO TC 307 with Quant. And like you see, OECD. And what do we also have here? BIT's co-founder, CIO, Simon Chantry, been working on the space of digital currencies for a hot minute and is even building CBDC standard for interoperability collaboration. Notice OECD in the background, as you see above his head, which is a SSB, which Simon is a board member for blockchain. And again, what is that? Why is that so important? Because this particular gentleman worked to establish BIT's CBDC standards and best practices to enable interoperability and effective CBDC project collaboration among international central banks. So this even bridges over to the central banks with this OECD concept. And also, how I mentioned oil, digital oil. Look what it says here. We see various documents that we confirm that ISO and OECD are working together to accelerate the adoption of DOT standards, most likely TC 307. Okay, so again, Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. You could say basically that Jasmy is part of that Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. You ever notice that Hara always goes to like things like East Denver and whatnot? It's an alliance, right? That's also big to cite and reference. Okay, we also see that OECD collaborates with ISO, hence Jasmy ISO 27001. This is so big to understand how major this is. This was a European Union discussion back in 2023 on DLT standardization, and who do we see? Other OECD members and also the Quant members, Gilverdi and so on. So I don't want to harp too much on this, but it's always interesting that when I research more into the whole thing of Jasmy connections, it unravels Quant. I don't even have to purposely look for Quant, and it shows that. And that's why I put so much emphasis on that for the last 2 or 3 years and so on. All right, a little bit more about this. We're going to jump over to this PDF. Shout out to Daniel Jesus Oil for the PDF. It's a data free flow with trust white paper, literally white paper. All right, remember in Jasmy's original white paper about the KPI target of 2026? That was always interesting, especially like with $17. And I get where Rob, Crypto Future 99, was talking about, you know, the whole thing, obviously, with specifically Jasmy was based off of a stock market kind of like evaluation, a traditional market. So are those metrics right? Well, even if they're dramatically wrong, I see Jasmy at a bare minimum of $1 or more long term. That's not too shabby. That's not too shabby at all. I have it way higher than that. So as we see here, do they mention anything specific about 2026? And the answer is yes. This is so interesting. On page 13 of 24, we see here specifically this particular area. And what's incredible is to see where it says specifically, data innovation is particularly useful to deal with the challenges associated with aging society as low replacement rates are changing the demographic structure of Europe and East Asian countries. The inevitable fact that people live healthier longer and more productive lives ceases to be a challenge if data-driven cost savings can mitigate the pressure on public finances. One consultancy report predicts that AI applications alone may result in annual savings of $150 billion by 2026, and that's just in the United States. That in itself is so major. Okay, this other area, Japan's security management guideline for cloud service providers handling medical information, sets an example of how third parties can certify security requirements. Revised pharmaceutical law, the Pharmaceutical Medical Devices Act, came into effect back in 2014 with the aim to ease the regulatory burden, reduce development costs on software by subjecting them to less time-consuming certification procedure. Well, if you have the standard to begin with, you can see how you can leapfrog yourself to become the industry standard moving forward. A little more about this. Here's another citation from the CSIS. You see here specifically more than enough information to say the least about data free flow with trust. The need for trusted data flows. Think about this. Today's global digital economy fueled by data. Any action taken in the digital economy, whether it be buying goods, selling or service and so on, or accessing a piece of information requires the creation and transfer of data, and lots of it. More than 221 zettabytes of data. So again, this is like trillions and trillions and trillions of data. Remember how we talked about with Ripple, with XRP, basically enabling the internet of value? Well, who will be the ones that will harness that protected data? That is a different layer of utility. Much of this data will flow across national borders. These cross-border data flows do not just support the digital economy, they are also invaluable. So can we say that Jasmy long-term may very well be one of the most invaluable, most important digital assets of our portfolio? I already have it there. It says, for providing the efficiency and resilience of trading goods and services online and on the ground, the cross-border data flows also buttress other key environments and the functions such as efforts to safeguard national security, track cross-border carbon emissions, and deliver global medical assistance. Now watch this. Citation from Daniel Jesus Oil. Mayo Clinic in the United States, whether you're a fan of them or not, does highlight these key things. Collaboration on what? AI-powered remote health monitoring platforms such as Panasonic. Oh my goodness, what do we have here? And Edge. Yeah, remember how we talked about these partnerships, obviously, with Panasonic? Edge devices. Detail, supply of high-resolution image sensors and optical components of endoscopic systems. Status, active supply relationship. Exactly. Think about what kind of relationship Jasmy has with their key connections. Partnership with, obviously, Panasonic. They got this thing going on with Sony, Toyota subsidiaries, etc., 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 etc. Getting more into this, here's the other one. It says here, details on Panasonic Evervolt batteries bundled with Octopus's Energy Kraken platform for dynamic energy pricing and grid services in the UK. Max, why are you pointing this out? Here's why I'm pointing this out. This flew under the radar. Most people don't even know about this. Grid partitioning inverter, GPI, and boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. Tadashi Morita, a Sony Computer Science Laboratories, who is still part of, apparently, the Jasmy higher-ups, right? you see here, he had a presentation back in December 2024. That's interesting. Yes, incredibly interesting, because this grid partitioning inverter talks about this whole thing of these key features, as you see here, in the patent, for crying out loud. Microgrid integration integrates multiple microgrids to function as a smart grid, contributing to network stabilization. That is so important. Smart grid system with battery-based energy trading, utilizing battery storage, current limiting technology. This smart grid enables pre-purchasing and trading of specific amounts of electricity. And here's what's really important, is to see the orchestration of all, and to see that this key guy, who is highly revered in Japan, is a key player, not just with Sony, but obviously with Jasmy. Getting further into it, check this out for a moment, just in case you don't get it. Shout out to the myth, the legend, the one and only Neo X Tricks. What does he have about this? Well, for one, he points out that it should basically be noted, ladies and gentlemen, that Panasonic is the #1 leading company in Japan with industrial home appliance sector. The major meeting announced by Hara, and notice this is on October 2nd, so it's kind of somewhat recent, will therefore be a great importance. Panasonic has always taken a progressive approach, as reflected in that particular report. But they were highlighted by BSC News, and that's important. Okay, look at this other thing real quick. Everything in there is shared on the roadmap. Creation of Web3 platform, Panasonic, base app, wallet, stablecoins, partnership, banks, collaboration, sports teams. Things are taking shape. How about this other one? To fully understand the relationship between Jasmy and Panasonic, one must go back in time to grasp the current state of affairs and shared vision. We just did that. All right, now watch this also. Let's highlight this for a moment. Congratulations once again to Jasmy Lab team for their successful development so far and for winning with Junction. Dr. Hollerit mentioned they can't say everything, but Panasonic, Sony, and the former CTO of PlayStation are part of the Jasmy Junction ecosystem. The University of Tokyo is also using their technology for research in electricity, and certainly Digital Hollywood University will soon be involved in the fields of multimedia, video games, etc. Know that Jasmy and Junction will continue to make progress in parallel paths, always interconnected, and they are destined to create the universe the team envisioned since the launch of Jasmy. You're more than welcome to watch this clip, but basically it shows Bernard of Jasmy/Junction talking to some of these people. So basically an unofficial unofficial partnership with the University of Tokyo. They're doing some big things, and they're partnering, or at least meeting up and testing some of these things, especially when it comes to the PlayStations, and doing the testing in regard to how can we encompass this technology for a wider adoption. All right. The other area I want to jump into is, do not forget this, that the technology is already mature, and it is Jasmy. Back in 2018, Neo X Tricks points out that Panasonic North America, through 2 of its researchers, published a document describing blockchain as a new infrastructure for value exchange, offering security, transparency, and cost reduction, compared to centralized systems, while being disrupted enough to transform finance, logistics, healthcare, so on and so forth. But as you blow up this document, well, again, I own IOTA, and I feel as though that's very important to highlight IOTA as well. But keep in mind, it says, unlike blockchains and other virtual currencies that anyone can use, on top right, where the red is, private blockchains are limited to a certain number of participants. I realize that the screenshot's blurry. That's not me and my computer. That's because it was taken from a cell phone screenshot. So a certain number of participants are often used to, in business-to-business, bank-to-bank, or excuse me, business-to-business transactions. This is also attracting the attention of application area where scalability issue mentioned above is less of a problem. As a peer-to-peer commerce transaction involving payment proxy table example, IOTA, right? That's a very slept-on project. It has also been proposed, to implement an IoT edge devices enabling transactions, even in environments with limiting computer resources. This is so crucial. I'm glad you highlighted, because that in itself screams Jasmy's technology, right? But yeah, I will hold IOTA as well, because they're a key player of ISO 222 and the ISO coins. But yes, even Jasmy, even that much more. So, and especially with what they got going on in Japan and abroad. Getting further into this, let's pull up another citation and reference from Daniel's research. Sensor development with Sony, and look what it says on part 8, semiconductor and advanced materials, right? Indirect partnerships, those are always the most important. Sensor development with Sony and Omron for industrial and automotive applications. Bottom part, I've referenced this numerous times in deep dives, says that basically speaking, Afeela, Sony, Honda, Mobility, Panasonic is not a disclosed partner of Afeela/Sony, but Sony, Honda, Mobility has basically this whole thing of Afeela's battery and semiconductor suppliers have not include Panasonic in official announcements. Instead, they rely on Sony's imaging sensors and Honda's manufacturing. Again, check out one of my deep dives. I'll try to find that particular one. I'll put on end screen card. It's Tadashi Morita, right? And his key patents about this whole topic of microgrid technology, CMOS image sensors, semiconductors, etc., etc. Do not forget that when you saw the two largest pumps for Jasmy when it went up to almost 6 cents, and we were in the, I think, top 40 or 50 in market cap on CMC rankings, is because of the news that came out at the time of what JASM, not Jasmy, but JASM and another particular one, I think it was TSMC, with semiconductor information, okay? It's what's indirectly involved. It's the utility that we're talking about here. More importantly, let's jump into this. It's the collaborators. Panasonic points out collaboration brings better results. And notice how it mentions one example is Denver's Peña Station Sustainable Energy District. We spearheaded an initiative with Xcel Energy and other stakeholders to create Colorado's first solar microgrid. The project, which has inspired similar initiatives across the United States, help Xcel modernize and manage its grid with innovative technologies and strengthen resilience for customers and critical loads. That's also so major because Panasonic is also being invested in billions of dollars with partners like Tesla, Toyota to accelerate the shift to electric vehicles. All right, another one I want to jump into. Amazon unveils the next generation of AI-powered Echo devices, purpose-built, I should say, for Alexa Plus. And again, even in the tags, you see all this about, for example, smart homes, artificial intelligence, and so on. Take it further into this. Who else do we have from the Jasmy research team that pointed this out? The importance. Lil Bidman, give him a follow over at Lil Bidman. Has some of the best research out there when it comes to Jasmy. Aplex, IoT solution now supports Amazon Echo is Japan's first home appliance application for Aplex's IoT solution. This is from a 2016 Aplex press conference. And as you see here, very important to reference this, and more importantly, very important to understand, even a shout out to our brother in space, Icy Amphibian, who points out the tags automatically record this whole thing with filters linked with monitoring of the platform services on Alexa Cloud. And as you see here, Aplex. So why point out Aplex? Aplex is a key partner with, of course, Jasmy, and you can see how all this comes together. The other area I want to jump into is how Alexa Plus connects to even more services. Shout out to Daniel again with the findings. He points out well-known brands such as Uber, Lyft, additionally companies including Bose, Sonos, LG, Samsung, BMW will add Alexa Plus. All right, the other area I want to jump into is more about Uber. Uber and May Mobility announced strategic partnership to scale autonomous vehicles. This was last May, but yeah, this year, okay? This is important as well, because when you see some of this stuff, the new partnership, like it mentions, brings together Uber, the global ride-hail market leader, and May Mobility to scale the availability of AV transportation in an estimate of 1 trillion AV market in the United States. That's also major, and here's why that's so major. Because here's more about May Mobility. Thank you, Daniel, for taking the liberty to help me out with this, to condense it, so this is not a 4-hour video. Backed by strategic partnerships with who? Industry leaders, including Toyota, NTT, May Mobility is disrupting the autonomous vehicle industry. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Jasmy is going to disrupt the industries that need the biggest disruptors. And last I checked, anything that's a big disruptor, those are the ones that people regret later on not getting into. There's a bigger picture here. Again, why is Jasmy ranked my number 3 in my top 10? Ask yourself that. Draw your own conclusion about that. IoT, the Internet of Things. I cannot think of any other industry that would have a utility be used as much as this. All right, that is massive. Getting more into this, look at this. Toyota and all these other ones listed on this list. Woven by Toyota, Woven City. And more importantly, expansion of collaboration of service providers related to movement. Development and operation of app and payment platform, collaboration with services, Toyota powered or provided by Toyota. There's a whole ecosystem here that people don't even realize. Bookings and payments, Toyota Wallet, cashless payment. Think about cashless payment. Route search engine. Event place information. KDDI. Who in the world are they? Why even point them out? This is from global.toyota. Agreement back in 2020. New business and capital alliance between Toyota Motor Corporation and KDDI Corporation, strengthening the alliance for a society in which towns, homes, peoples, and cars are all connected. The other one. Toyota and KDDI Tokyo, stated back in 2017, hired a taxi association to begin the verification testing for connected taxis using big data and development of new services. My goodness. People don't even understand how this all comes together. If anything, I'm going to help you guys understand that. This other area, February 26, 2024, KDDI, Sony, Honda, Mobility start collaboration to drive connected businesses globally. This already came together, right? That's also major. And you see literally a roadmap or a mind map of how it all comes together. KDDI, global technology or telecommunication platform. And you see how it all comes together. Yes, together. Connected, autonomous sharing, electric, collectively known as CASE. That's important about this collaboration, extensive experience in global IoT. Think about that. IoT, Internet of Things. KDDI provide global telecommunication platform carrying new, highly convenient features, support the entertainment experiences and global launches of affiliate and what they're aiming for. All right. The other area I want to jump into is basic grok conversation. Will Japan require a personal data locker? And the answer is not like, oh, it's possible. Oh, we're thinking about it. No. Even grok says Japan is advancing initiatives around personal data lockers, but they refer to them as personal data stores or information banks in policy discussions. It's part of a broader My Data movement and digital transformation strategy. You ever wonder why there's so much emphasis on My Number Card? Think about that. These are secure, user-controlled digital repositories where individuals can store, manage, selectively share their personal data with third parties, such as businesses, government services, explicit content. That's major. And while there's not a universal legal mandate for all citizens as of October 2025, the government is promoting their adoption through guidelines, certifications. Think about ISO 27001 and integration with the My Number system. Absolutely major. That's Japan's national ID, and pilot program certified providers are already operational, and upcoming APPI amendments expected this year, 2025, and effective to 2027 are likely to strengthen those requirements because it's all about data portability, user control, making lockers a key compliance tool. People still don't know the importance of the role of Jasmy in the bigger picture. I'm telling you, the whole world will know about Jasmy. It's a ticking time bomb. Japan's personal push, I should say, for personal data lockers, context and reasons. Japan is advancing initiatives around personal data lockers, of course, refer to those personal data stores. I already shared this part. So that is absolutely crucial. Here's the last one, which was recent. Because X, yes, X, formerly known as Twitter, does have a data privacy problem. And one thing I want to point out here, Japan investigates X for non-compliance with the harmful content law. Regulators say X may be in breach of Japan's online safety law by forcing non-users to register before requesting removal of harmful defamatory posts. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. This comes from the Geneva Internet Platform DIG Watch. And this is so important because think about this. Elon Musk realizes on X, he still has a huge problem when it comes to Japan. And you may feel as though, oh, that's not that big a deal. Japan's not that big of a deal. The heck it ain't. Japan, according to a basic search, ranks as the second largest country for X for users globally after the United States. Estimates place the number of X users in Japan approximately 69.28 million to almost 76 million, making it the highest ranking Asian country on the platform, second to only the United States. Okay? Now watch this. Japan's large number of users make it the Asian country with the highest engagement on the platform. Yes, the highest engagement. And watch this. How many Americans currently use X? About roughly 105 million. So you have a huge base of people, Japanese, that use the platform. Okay, you have to address that problem. So think about this. Jasmy can be your all-in-one solution, Mr. Elon Musk, to get the job done. This problem that, you keep kicking the can down the road. And that in itself can absolutely send this thing. Everybody's talking about, which platform will be used for cross-border payments. Would it be Ripple, XRP? Would it be Stellar, XLM? Could very well be for X, because literally it's in this title, X, XLM, XRP, right? But what about the one that's going to solve the problem for the platform because you do not meet compliance? That should be talked about more enough. All right, last but not least, a call to action. This is my new friend, and we've been collaborating together on Discord. So if you appreciate deep dive content from my buddy Quant Papa, please show respect to Daniel, aka Jesus Oil. He can be followed at Jesus_oil. And like it says here, he's like it says, minister, faith, preacher. Build up his following because he definitely deserves it. So you will see a lot of deep dive articles and information and research where we both collaborate to produce these videos for you guys. So call to action to give him a follow. And if you listen to this entire outline, do me a solid by typing in this key phrase into the comments, and that is Daniel Jesus Oil FTW, as in for the win. Because this man is my brother in Christ. He loves my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ just as much as I do, and he deserves recognition. And I really, really appreciate all of your hard work, Daniel. I really, really do. So give him a follow, especially on the X platform. And that is the research and the update for you today. Wow, oh wow, my, a lot to be unraveled and unpacked with Jasmy. Saying goes, know what you have. Know why you hold it. The research trumps flood 110%. May the Lord Jesus bless you all. I truly mean that. We will see you on the next one.